Today is October 28, 2024. This is session number 34 of Discovering the Essence of Nonviolent Communication with Jim and Jori Manske. And I turn it to you and welcome.
Aloha, thank you.
Hello, welcome.
How are you?
Oh, how am I? A little bit tired, but there's such a delight to see all your faces. It's so sweet for me. So even when I feel tired or, busy running around, I get to look at your faces and remember that we're part of such a wonderful community. I'm really glad you come, and we'll see what we learn together, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, we're building a holistic system. That's our topic for today, supporting holistic systems, and we'll talk more about what that means as we keep going. More people are arriving. Glad to see you all showing up. And we'll practice. We'll do a lot of practice today. And we'll start with a little like a little 1 minute of silence. And then I'm going to prompt you with a slide that is a quote from Marshall. Then I'm going to be quiet for about 8 minutes while this slide is on the screen. And the idea is that you sit with Marshall's quote and then you do some writing about it as your own self-connection exercise. So you'll be doing like a contemplation on this idea of Marshall's, doing some writing about it, and then we'll move you into small groups in about 8 or 9 minutes or so. So we'll start with 1 minute of silence just to get yourself grounded, and I'll get the slide ready. So as you arrive, and just check in with yourself. Do your own version of the 0 step. Be clear on your intention for being here. Cultivate presence for yourself. Open yourself to outcome, including being with your heart as you contemplate this. Mark, it says I can't share yet.
Okay. So here's the quote, and I'll put it in the chat as well. And I'll be quiet for 7 minutes while you think about it and write about it. Joy, you want to read that? Unless we are unless we as social change agents from a certain spirituality.
Come from a certain spirit. It's kind of hard to read.
Yeah, it's really hard to see.
Yeah.
There you go. Thanks. Unless we as social change agents come from a certain spirituality, we are likely to create more harm than good.
So in just a moment, we'll go to small groups. It'll be a chance for you to connect with some friends about this quote, what it means to you. So all of you are social change agents. You're already doing social change because you're learning and practicing NVC. This is a radical paradigm shift that you're all involved in. So you're already, it's too late. You're already social change agents. You're already coming from a certain spirituality. And so what does it mean to you? What is this certain spirituality that you sense Marshall is talking about that might help us create more good than harm? So we'll go to small groups. Everybody have about 5 minutes to talk about this and introduce yourselves to your new friends. And so just make sure that everybody has a chance to speak, do some rounds. You know, maybe there's more than one round, one introductory round where you just introduce yourself, your name, where you're calling from, and so forth.
And it's good to have someone who's a timekeeper so that you know that everybody will get a chance.
And then in the second round, you can do your rough draft of what does it mean to you to come from a certain spirituality in your social change work. And I want to just expand the pie a little bit of what social change means. Marshall modeled his international intensive trainings on a certain pattern. The first day was building a life-serving system within yourself. Because he recognized that unless we create this certain spirituality, the rest of our work might do more harm than good. And then as the IIT progresses, the skills that were explored and practiced become more relational, because it's relationships where we get a chance to really refine our skills and consciousness with NVC. And then that prepares us to go out and do change work in the world, if that's your heart's desire. So let's go to small groups now. Gang's all back.
Yeah.
That's an inside joke for people who've been doing NVC for a while. The gang's all back. Maybe we'll talk about that a little bit. But let's see here. Who would like to share what you learned about this certain kind of spirituality? What did you learn from your own contemplation and from hanging out with friends? If you'd love to be heard, then please just raise your hand using your electronic hand on the bottom, because we may not see you otherwise. All voices are welcome, especially brand new ones. Pooja, go ahead.
Oh my gosh, I got in touch with this need for shared humanity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's nice to savor that need with you. So connecting with shared humanity is part of that certain spirituality. Cecilia?
Yes, I mean, our conversation was so rich, and I actually have something that I would like your perspective on, because for a long while, when someone told me like social change, you're a social change agent, I thought like a leader and a big movement. And I'm like, no, I'm not, I'm not in social change. And then, as I developed, I actually moved to another end of the spectrum, which is like me just being who I am a social changer, because in my circle, the way that I show up makes me a force in one direction or another. And then you mentioned, like, if you're doing NVC, you're already doing social change. And of course, I understand how that has changed me. And at the same time, other things like my coaching background has also changed me. So I'm developing. So I wanted your perspective on, like, in NVC, is there a social change concept?
Well, Marshall did write a little book called The Heart of Social Change, which I would recommend that everybody read 10 times or thereabouts. Along with his book, Practical Spirituality. These are teeny tiny,
Yeah, I was
these
gonna
are
say,
teeny tiny
yeah.
books. And so
Reads, but very useful.
and deep. And I'm kind of with you with the yes and answer to your question, that how we show up in a group with our own spirituality, wherever we get it from, as long as it's a kind of spirituality that is inclusive and transformational and is yeah, those are probably enough adjectives. Then I think we're probably just how when we show up, even at a family dinner, we're doing social change. And then we're all part of bigger communities. What makes human beings unique is our ability to cooperate. We can cooperate in large groups. Other primates can cooperate in large groups too, but groups that most primates cooperate in are 100 or less, often family relations. Human beings can create cooperative systems that are in the billions, like the country of China, for example, the Catholic Church and other big churches are huge organizations. And when we're a part of an organization, which we all are, how we show up there is going to influence how that organization works. And then we may have a particular theme that we want to focus on in our own social change work. So we might get ourselves involved with another group of people with a common aim, like peacemakers, for example, or trainers. So how does that answer land with you, Cecilia?
Yeah, it's very, very aligned, and I appreciate that there are other ways to articulate, and that you're bringing, the books, and I'm just, yeah, so just having like, what is the NVC way of articulating these things, and also this idea that we can be part of and create, these larger groups. I think that was very interesting for me to discover and think of as well. It was in my my landscape. So thank you for that. That was enriching for me.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question.
Yeah.
And the conversation. Isabel.
Thank you, Jim. This idea of spiritualism, social change was one thing that always inhibited me. I felt very small. And I'm guessing from the number of hands up here, I'm guessing others might feel that way too. So I wanted to share what came up for me. So while the topic is huge, why is Marshall asking this of us? Why does NVC go there? And so I want to bring back to the keyword supporting holistic systems. It's not about creating, but about supporting. And so, whereas I still feel very small, in my mind, I'm thinking, I just need to clean up my garden and my relationship. That's why I came here. Why am I about to go and do the whole work for the community and the neighborhood? I'm scared. I don't think I'm good enough. What came to me as I was sharing the breakout room is my 2 feet are always touching the earth. And so every time I walk, I am constantly touching the earth along with every human being on earth. And we're all connected in that sense, reverberating as every time we're pounding on the feet. And as long as we're not flying all the time. The consciousness that I bring as I pass on my vibration to the earth connects. For all of us who have lived NVC, have felt the joy of connection, of deep connection without words, of just knowing I am connected from heart to heart. And if we can bring this consciousness to our feet and let that energy pass from one another, we are changing the world, aren't we? What could have gone wrong, where we could have stabbed another person or hurt with our tongues, will become different. And I am already participating in whichever small or large community and change the world. And I guess Mr. Marshall was thinking about that as he suggested that we go for the holistic systems, because what he's asking is drop your ego. Don't think you're alone. Don't think you're not on your own just because you're you. We're all connected. There is an interdependence. That's my take.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, Isabel. Who else would like to be heard? Maybe even somebody resists the idea of social change. That's certainly not an uncommon reaction. So if that's alive in you, I'm happy to listen to you as well. Yeah, Tanya.
So I am really concerned about making the argument around social change too fluffy and nice, and giving up on the urgency that I believe Marshall felt. And his other quote, which is, if you use NVC to be happy with the status quo, then I've missed my mark or not made my point, or I forget how the end of the, I haven't succeeded in some way. So, and not too long ago, without getting into too much detail, I saw a case of two very strong nonviolent communication practitioners have a conversation in which one of them was very critical about the urgency that the other person was saying, because their particular group of people are being killed, and that's not an acceptable outcome for them. And the other person who they were talking to was kind of talking back from this kind of fluffy way of looking at social change. And not, this, on some levels, this is actually life and death for a lot of people. And I think that we have people even in this room who think that it's life and death for all of us right now to not deal with the environmental situation.
Yeah.
And that, so being warm and cozy about it, I just think is, I would really ask people to really examine that in themselves if they feel that, and whether or not they're actually buying into a status quo that is not their friend.
Yeah, you really want people to stay connected to the pain of unmet needs and the urgency of those unmet needs.
And the cost.
Yeah, the clear and present danger of unmet needs. For example, climate change, and some people are pretty freaked out about AI or nuclear war, or
Well, I'm just talking about racism. So,
racism. Isms of all forms.
Isms of all forms, yes, but that there, that there is a violence, as ongoing violence, and we're not going to not experience this violence.
Yeah.
And so being able to stand your ground within a place of peace and NVC consciousness within the violence is a not easy to acquire skill.
Yeah. Yeah, before we go to Elspeth, I think I'll share this other slide with you that I think goes to what you're talking about. Not this one, this one. The kind of spirituality I value, this is Marshall again. The kind of spirituality I value is one in which you get great joy out of contributing to life, not just sitting and meditating, although meditation is certainly valuable. But from the meditation, I would like to see people in action, creating the world they want to live in.
Mhm.
And so when I was hanging out with Marshall a lot, he was talking. I actually got to do 2 Jori and I got to do 2 15-day social change trainings with Marshall. So that's 30 days of training, just focus on social change. And he was talking a lot during those meetings about a distinction between translative spirituality and transformative spirituality. And this is terms he borrowed from Ken Wilber. So translative spirituality, if I'm remembering correctly, refers to a kind of spirituality where we translate what is into some form of acceptance. And that, we might just say, well, that's just the way it is, by golly, and there's nothing I can do about it. And so I'm going to just translate and work on creating inner peace within myself, and that's enough. And maybe for some people, that is enough. I don't want to have a prejudgment of anybody's pathway. But I believe Marshall was in favor of a transformative spirituality, where we take whatever we learn on the meditation cushion or through our gratitude practice or NVC practice, and then take it into the world and address pain and suffering. That we transform our own pain and mourning into action. Does that line up for you, Tanya? Okay. Elspeth?
In my group, I was sharing some things about circumstantial stuff, and I realized when we came back to the main group that it was again the same pattern. I just wanted to use the word that you used one time to reflect to me the difference between those concepts that are translated as interconnectedness or interdependence or like oneness or one human family, and the difference between the word involvement. And I just really wanted to highlight that word again, because before this period of injury for me, I have been very involved and very active in social change projects and community work and all sorts of youth stuff. And I felt so empowered by that. And so in the last few years, I've been through this huge grief process of being in a situation where I realized that my faith in human goodness, and the thing that Marshall's talked about sometimes people try and meet their needs in really dysfunctional ways. Until this last set of experiences, I just felt so confident that I could always reach someone, even if they were super dysfunctional. And I had a sense of personal empowerment that there would always be a way to find a win-win solution and kind of collaborative processes. And so in the last few years, I've been through this very deep grief of realizing that there are some people that are just very deeply dysfunctional, or really, I feel like I've encountered human evil. And it's been such a shock to how to contextualize that. So I'm just so incredibly grateful to Tanya and to you, Jim, for those explanations of that this work can actually be that powerful, and to keep on and keep a hold of my vision for how I want my life to contribute to the world. And I think just recognizing that at points along the journey there will be grief processes that happen, because we are overcome by circumstances or people misusing their power in very violent ways. And so just naming this today because I'm just recognizing again that grief has to have a place in the cycle of social justice. It can't just be moving between the pain of unmet needs and then into action. There needs to be a place where the consequences of actions are faced and felt before there can be a re-entry into action again. And so, yeah, the meditation part is a part of that cycle, I think. And yeah, so I just, those situations I was in, I didn't have enough support and there was not enough transparency and honesty and some power dynamics. So hearing the two of you being older, more advanced practitioners than me really helps restore my confidence in this path and helps me understand that we can't do this alone. We need to have the support and the shared human people who share our values and who share the commitment to peace building and social justice in the world.
Yeah.
Just
Thank you.
incredibly grateful. Thank you.
Really holding that the power of your own mourning on several levels, and really resonating with it as I'm kind of working with my own health dramas right now and feeling impeded by that. And so it's like a whole nother layer of mourning that some of us are touching, especially in this time of multiple crises. And the comments are really kind of building the slideshow for us. So we're doing things out of order, but these are the 4 elements that Marshall identified for building a holistic system. Those are not his words. Holistic systems is a word that Jori and I and Jake and Jack came up with because we were scared of using social change because of the allergic reaction some people in some governments have to the concept of social change or social justice. We didn't want to create an unnecessary barrier to NVC and authoritarian societies. So we didn't want to call it social change so directly. Here it feels safe because we're on NVC Academy.
Right, we're in community here where that's safe.
But these are the 4 elements of system building. And you'll see that we've touched all of this over our course of the last 34 weeks. And so I'll just pause here and see if there's anybody else who wants to share before we do a practice.
Yeah.
Great. Go ahead, Jeff.
Jim.
Yeah, thanks for the space. Appreciate you, Jim, always offering like who's going to be the last one to speak on the subject, or who's hiding, and I hide. Yeah, I got hung up on the word "certain," like a certain type of spirituality, as though like I'm going to pick it out of a variety. Like I got to get the right one, a certain kind of spirituality. And so that hung me up a little bit. And then also the reflection on like certainty, as in like, I'm certain about this thing. And I've realized that type of spirituality doesn't help me when I'm overly certain. So those were some things that sort of held me up a little bit, or that I was able to reflect on. But what I know and what is important to me to share is when I experience that certain type of spirituality that is people trying to be safe, people trying to be empathetic and present, that I am very touched by it. And so I can relate, I can put my finger on it when I experience it. And I'll just share there's a farm nearby that was a big seed production corporation company. And they've totally gone for nonprofit, and they're giving their seeds away, and they're inviting people to their farm, and they're like, and their emails just touch me because they care about people and they're changing society by showing up differently in a way that's loving. And I don't know, when I see that, I know what it is, and that's the certain spirituality that I want to be a part of. And
Yeah.
I get it here too.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, you know it when you see it, huh, brother?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. It feeds the inspiration inside of me.
And it's great to be a hound dog for the presence of that certain spirituality, because we human beings, we have this negativity bias. We tend to look for what's not working, what's not in alignment. And so when we shift that focus to what is in alignment with that certain kind of spirituality or interdependence or whatever words work for you, then we'll see more of it. Thanks, Jeff. Is that complete?
Yes, I'm gonna hound it out. I'm gonna go for it. Thanks.
You go, Guy.
Mesh.
Yeah, so I'll be very brief. Okay. Thanks for mentioning that, that source aversion part, right? So with the social change, okay, that certain segments, because I have, oh, sorry. Hello, can you hear me now? Hello.
Go ahead. You're good.
You're good.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So thanks for mentioning that word, right? Term, so that certain segments okay, have that social change aversion. Okay, because I definitely am finding myself in that space. For 5, 6, 7 years, okay, I went all out for social change, and I like the term. Okay, I change maker and all of it. I put my energy, and then I had some experiences which is a little bit similar to Elspeth. Okay. And and then, okay, I was like, focus on your own thing. Okay. Don't go. So but this part of system building, okay, and the approach, okay, I really like, okay, and this is something that I can totally work with. Okay. And I can see that, okay, it had those elements, okay, why social change journey was inspired by these elements. Okay. And I can naming that out again, saying that, okay, it allows me to give whatever I want to give, okay, rather than being sucked into a big vortex, okay, or media. I will say that media has probably hijacked the whole social change and change making, because this morning and what's wrong, okay, this is highlighted so much, okay, that you feel totally sucked in. Okay, so giving equal importance to all four, okay, is kind of amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mesh. Sweet.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's practice. Share the screen with you, and this will be a chance for you to do a little writing and thinking and kind of self-empathy work. We're going to start with the very practical, concrete, and then we'll see if this particular concrete skill might be able to be used in a more general way in terms of social change work. And the practice is called "We Need to Be as Smart as Bees and Dogs." And this is another quote from Marshall. And what the quote points to is that bees and dogs are extremely practical, as are all living creatures. They're motivated by just looking for ways to get their needs met. And so, if you think about, I love the bees are very active right now because one of the trees that is in our property, tea trees, TI trees, they're in bloom. And so they're just buzzing with activity. So what's motivating these bees? It's a need. They're there to build strength and power for their colony. And we have a dog living with us now. What's every behavior that dog has is clearly motivated by needs, even if they irritate me, like a barking or whatever, and the cat that comes to visit us. So these animals are smart. And we human beings, we sometimes we get in our own way by overthinking and so forth. So let's get really practical here. And think of something you would like to have that you don't have right now. Choose something that's really a tangible object. Yeah, it's something you could order from Amazon if they could, if there was such a thing where you live, that would fit in a big enough box, and you could go pick it up at the store, or the post office, or whatever. So it's an actual item that you could somehow collect. So think of something that you don't have that you wish you did, and write down the observation of what your desire is. No need here for the whole story. Just name an object. New cell phone, a comforter for your bed, box of food that you want to give away to the local food pantry. Doesn't matter what the object is. Just pick something and write it down. So the question in the chat is, does it have to be tangible? It'll be easier if it is. It could be something so simple, like you notice that you're getting a little low on laundry detergent or toothpaste or soap, or doesn't have to be like something you'd ask for Christmas or your birthday, just some kind of an object. But if you choose something that's not an object, that will fit in a box, then you can find out what happens. Some of you are probably ready for the second step, which of course is to write it down. Third step, if you had that, what needs do you predict that the object would contribute to? So, for example, it's a little embarrassing for me to admit, but I have a little bit of a craving for an iPhone 16. I don't really need one. My current phone works fine. It's a 13. It'll certainly last for a while longer. But I predict that if I got an iPhone 16, it might be fun. It's got some new bells and whistles, so it would probably contribute to some learning and some novelty. Might be contribute to some ease or flow. So far, the needs that I predict that are going to tip me have not gotten strong enough to tip me yet. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. Well, it's part of thinking. Just what are you thinking about you might want?
This is a powerful way to think it through by focusing on the needs that you predict any purchase will contribute to. And we follow the flow of the NVC practice. In this case, we go from needs to feelings. And stop and notice, how do you feel right now? You don't have this object. Maybe you want it. What do you notice in your body? And it's important in the way that I practice NVC anyway, to actually let myself feel the feelings. In my case, I noticed some confusion, a little befuddlement, some sense of desire, a little bit of embarrassment, like I mentioned already, some shame. I think I said excitement, some openness to getting it or not getting it. And mostly there's just that's the main feeling that I'm noticing right now is, well, maybe, maybe not. So kind of an openness and neutrality. What's it about for you? What are you noticing? And after you feel it for a moment, you can make a note of it. Just to remind yourself of what's alive in you as you review your notes later. You can report either physical sensations or emotions. And then notice the observation. You don't have it. You don't have this object right now. Oh, does that shift your feelings? How do you feel noticing you don't have what you want? Hmm. Mhm. And again, this is a process of presence, of just being presence and feelings awareness, just being aware of the feelings in your body. And then go back to needs. Are there new needs that have emerged as you've done the exploration?
And again, you can track these questions in the chat. If you're not quite finished with something before we go forward.
Then the last part of NVC is always the request. In this case, it's framed as a single step that you might take to move closer to getting what you want. Just identify one step that you could take. Not that you have to take it, but you could take to move closer. In just a moment, Marta will open up small groups again, this time for 20 minutes. Have a time to share your own process of what you learned in terms of practicing NVC on this practical matter. So whenever you're ready, Marta, we'll go for 20 minutes. So, time to do the second practice. Love to hear from just a couple of people. If there's anything that you're taking away from this practical version of the practice before we go a little more. Yeah, go ahead, Pallavi.
I think I'm still kind of toying with this question of social change. I think one is the social work that comes to my mind is always the work that people do to, so to say, contribute to others' lives which don't have certain privilege and trying to get them that privilege. And in this context, I'm kind of really struggling about what do we exactly mean by social change. So I just wanted to put it out there and see if.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that everybody needs to come up with their own answer. Mine is to find a way to contribute where to a particular system so that more needs are met at less cost, whether it's the internal system within me or whether it's relational with Jori or my family or the community close by, or if I decide to branch out like in the NVC community. It's always been my social change project, is to work with other NVC trainers and on various projects. So the idea is, for me, has always been, can we find a way to collaborate in order to meet more needs with less cost and thus contribute to the health of the system?
And what he means by less cost to other needs.
Yeah, less pain, less harm.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you. And that pretty much is our whole life, isn't it?
It is, isn't it?
I mean, everyday life, day-to-day
Yeah.
life. It's
Yeah.
the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, I don't
what
think
I-
social change is anything special or exotic. I think it's just
Yeah.
that I think we, if we exotify, if we turn something into something that's exotic or hard to get to, it actually just makes our work harder.
Mhm.
But it's as ordinary as, how do we say good morning to our partner? How do we say good night? Do we have a gratitude practice? Do we celebrate? Do we mourn? Do we have a vision? So forth. Thank you.
Well said.
Thank you. That seems so simple enough and not exotic or the idea that I had in my mind. Thank you for sharing
You're
that.
welcome.
It's that simple.
Kate.
Yeah. Instead of change, I thought actually social responsiveness came up to me. And I've sort of been irritated a little bit in the past by, a workshop saying, oh, you're just, people are resistant to change and blah, blah, blah. And I thought, oh, gee, this is a really triggering thing. And I don't necessarily want to change if things are working. I don't see value in change for change's sake necessarily, but being responsive to the needs that are there. Yay, I'm on that one. And I wanted to just draw a context. I've been involved in the last couple of weeks with a parliamentary inquiry into climate resilience, and that's a big issue for us. We've had 3 major and some minor storms that have really impacted our community, with power down for, over a week and so forth each time, and roads blocked and so forth. And I recognise, this is an issue and a bigger issue for many all over the world at the moment. And so this responsiveness, one of the issues that's come up is we have to stop looking to the past to see how we behave now. We also need to look to how things are predicted to change by the expert scientists, and look to how we can prepare and respond. So this is all about, to me, connecting to what's present and also what we can predict might be likely, and say, how can we respond in a way that meets needs?
Nice.
And man, I love
And
that social responsiveness.
And I'd love to know where you are, so I know where that's happening.
Oh, Jori, I'm in Melbourne in Australia. So you might recall 2019-20, we had massive bushfires. I mean, the bushfire areas covered larger areas than quite a number of countries in the world. It's becoming clearer and clearer that we are experiencing these weather changes, as it is for other people, and that this isn't a 1 in 100-year event anymore. This is, as I said, 3 years in a row. We're averaging a major event every year.
And where was that again?
In Australia.
Australia, Melbourne. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kate.
Thanks
Thanks for your efforts to be responsive.
Yes.
And Pooja?
We kind of ran into this question as part of the group. Happy to bring up the question, but if you think that this may not go well with the theme at hand, we can park it for later. The question that came up is that when you mentioned that Marshall Rosenberg was able to go to people without any attachment to his own needs and came from a place of contribution. So the question that I brought to the group, and everybody gave their answers, but I would like to know if you have more visibility into how Marshall Rosenberg went about things. Did he have to meet his needs for survival? And did he have any of the human needs that, he needed to get met? If so, then how did he go with non-attachment and meet his needs?
Yeah, so it would be a kind of a long answer, I think, but the short answer would be, I don't think Marshall would agree to be non-attached to needs.
Right.
He would be non-attached to strategies. And so, for example, shortly after he got his graduate degree, and he was a PhD, or a FUD, as he called it, he started teaching at the University of Wisconsin, and he found out that he had to give grades, and giving grades seemed violent to him. He said he was willing to give evaluations, written evaluations, have meetings with students and so forth, but that wasn't good enough for the administration. They had their system, and they had to define a letter grade, blah, blah, blah. And so he ended up getting fired. So Marshall goes from being a PhD in psychology with a comfy job, teaching at a prestigious university, to driving a cab. And so he found other ways to meet his need for survival for him and his young family at the time. So I would say he would be attached to the strategy of survival so that he can continue to do the work that he wanted to do, but he was unattached to a particular strategy to meet those needs.
And he was staying in an integrity with himself.
Yeah.
That was really an important piece of it.
Okay, so let me show you we don't have time to do the whole practice, but I want to show you the practice, and then it'll be in the classroom for you.
Jim, I believe you're muted.
Thank you.
We're feeling short on time.
Thank you.
Do it again, Jim.
Yeah. So this is the last practice, and we won't have time to go through the whole thing today, but we'll at least do the first part, and then you can do the rest. It'll be in the classroom. So think of an arena of social change that you would like to contribute to. And so here are the 6 areas or arenas of social change that you could consider. But if yours isn't on this list, then feel free to figure out how you want to put it. So I'll just be quiet for a couple minutes while you just choose one. All 6 might be important to you, but just for the exercise, choose one.
You put the first 2 things in.
The rest of the questions are pretty much what we already did. So nothing really changes about the questions. So the idea would be between now and next week that you guide yourself through this process and that you arrive next week with one step that and maybe you'd already taken it by the time we get together next week, but one step closer to getting you to building the holistic system that you would like to be involved in. And then to take a moment to celebrate or mourn how that is.
So this is a possible practice if you'd like to do
it. So you can take a picture of the screen, but it's also going to be in the classroom. Just be quiet for another minute or so while you just think about it. And to set us up for a checkout round, here's another quote from Marshall that I'd like to get your feedback on after today's session. Jori, can you read that one?
Sure. Given the enormity of the social change that confronts us, change that we would all like to see, the thing that I predict will be, okay, it's really hard for me to read.
Will give us the most hope and strength to make change happen is if we make sure that we learn how to celebrate. Let's build celebration into our lives and build from that. That's first. Otherwise, we're going to get overwhelmed by the immensity. Out of a spirit of celebration, I think we will have the energy to do whatever it takes to bring about social change or social responsiveness or building a holistic system or whatever words you want to use. So sit with that for a minute. And when someone's ready, I'd love to hear your celebration about what we did today. I put it into the chat so I can see the hands up. Somebody also asked me to share that first slide. I'll do that real quick while you think about it. Here, I'll just put it in the chat. I think that's better than the
Yeah.
slide.
Right.
Okay, Anita.
I feel I feel a lot more calm and joy at being aware of my needs and that I frequently just push away or not pay attention to, and the understanding that I am worthwhile and I'm worthy of having needs. So that feels good.
Nice.
Nice. I celebrate that. What you doing there?
Trying to get it so we can see people a little bit easier.
So I think she's complete.
She is.
Yes.
Somebody else, please. Let's hear a celebration of your connection to the idea of supporting holistic systems. Some little insight or understanding that you got today. And the reason that we ask these kinds of questions is because it helps us to know whether we're making a contribution or not. That 50 people come every week, that's feedback, but hearing your voice is very rich. Yeah, Aranima.
I'm celebrating. I have a project. I'm hoping to share NVC at my daughter's kindergarten, and connecting with the first process, connecting with the idea that I don't want to change people. I don't want to do something to them. I want to approach it from a space of treasuring this opportunity, the gift of being able to connect, and to create, and to bring joy and contribute. So I really value this shift of being able to say power with rather than power over. I'm hoping to share and not change or fix or something like that. So that's really useful. And that's
Wonderful.
I'm really happy. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you so much for what you're doing.
Yeah, it's fun to think of you in that kindergarten class and how the seeds that you're planting will last a lifetime.
Yes. And my daughter the other day said, Amma, don't rush me. Please don't rush me. I want to color with care. So I was about to rush her. So I think it's just it's such a wonderful way to be able to make a change.
Yes, beautiful. Very sweet.
Thanks, Aranima. Umesh?
Yeah, so thanks for sharing that definition, okay, of social change, okay, which is on celebration and hope and strength. Okay. My earlier guidance, and I'm a Vivekanand fan. Okay, my school name was Vivekananda Shishu Niketan. Swami Vivekananda is an Indian spiritual leader who lived Chicago religious leader. Right. So 1893, he died 1992. But he's very inspirational figure in India. And one of the things that he said, okay, I'm going to quote it against, so long as millions live in hunger and ignorance, I hold every person a traitor who, having been educated at their expense, pays not the least heed to them. Okay. And that was pretty, that puts you in the spot. Okay. I felt I was one of those guys. And a lot of energy came from there. Okay. And it burns actually. Okay. So and the other portion was also this, that it's because you got help. Okay. You did some 100x growths you saw, okay, in terms of income or whatever, right? Okay. So that's a celebration angle. Okay. And there is this another angle. Okay. Now celebration angle is pretty rejuvenating. Okay. It doesn't allow you to have those guilt traps, okay, of enjoying anything. Okay. The other angle is like, okay, every time you want to buy something, you want to enjoy something, celebrate, you are like, no way. Okay. There are people there. Okay. So I like this other angle way better. Okay. And thanks a lot, okay, for today's session. Okay. It gives me different ways of looking at social change.
Thanks, Umesh. Guihua?
Hi, Jim and Jori. Yeah, the area I'd like to work in is education. So most often I feel helpless and frustrated. Yeah, but at least I celebrate that now in my classroom, I will encourage my students to speak, to respond in Jim's way. So now I'm a better saleswoman, yeah, to empathize the students and to encourage them and at the same time accept them, yeah, not to speaking, yeah.
Yay.
What lucky students you have.
Yeah.
And what a lucky teacher you are to be building a holistic system in your school. Thank you.
Yeah, and I want to mention that there are more people come to our the 28 metrics review team. Yeah,
That's wonderful.
yeah.
Yes, Guihua and her team are taking what we're learning here at NVC Academy and translating it into Mandarin and offering it as a practice group in China, which is like a dream come true. If any of you want to do something like that, just write to me and we'll let you know how you might be able to set something like that up. But we really want to make these skills and this consciousness available to as many people as possible.
Yeah, as many languages as possible.
Yeah,
Thank you
thank
so much
you.
for doing.
And thank you, Jim, for the letter you wrote to Abu. Yeah, you sent to Abu. Yeah, we are going to open to more people. Yeah, the review of the 28 metrics.
Wonderful. That's
Thank you.
great. Thank you very much. And Beth?
Yes. I am part of a chronic pain support group, and I have noticed so many people are not in touch with their feelings and needs. And I'm so excited. I would like to bring NVC to the chronic support group to help people to get into touch with their feelings and needs, so they can communicate with their doctors or with their spouses or their children without, being too emotional, maybe at times.
Yeah.
Wonderful. This is called building a holistic system. I'm really excited to hear that you're taking a group that you're already involved with and then bringing in your experience of NVC to support people in more clear and deeper communication with their practitioners and their family. Thank you.
And we have time for one more.
Elise?
Elise?
Yes, hi, Felice. I'm from Singapore. And so
It's hard to hear you,
my
Felice.
siblings
Okay, hang on a second, Felice. Can you just turn your camera off? I think then we'll be able to hear you.
okay, yes.
And then
And
speak
this,
to your mic, yeah.
There you go.
yeah. Is it slightly better now?
Oh yeah, it's better now for sure.
Yes, okay. So my ex-Prime Minister, Mr. Lee Hsien Loong, and his siblings have a conflict, so much so that the two siblings, one sibling has left Singapore and sought political refugee status in UK. So I have sent some messages to my Prime Minister, Lawrence Wong, and sent emails to him to offer John Kenyon's services. John Kenyon has said he's willing and happy to see how he can contribute to the siblings who are estranged.
Wow,
Wow.
that's really great that you would be an intermediary to support a mediation between siblings who have some structural power. Yeah, thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that.
So we're coming to the end of today's class. For those of you in the mainland of North America, unless you live in Arizona, you're likely to have a time shift where you'll get an extra, you can arrive here an hour earlier and not have to stay up so late starting next week. And Marta won't be here, but we will keep you informed. And Marta, I think she put some information in the chat already about that. Doesn't affect most of the world. So unless you go through a shift with daylight savings time, don't worry about what I just said. We always meet at the same time, 4 o'clock Hawaii Standard Time. And how are you now after 2 hours of playing together?
Ah, tired. Or as my son and daughter sometimes, I think it was our son when he was very young, he would go, I'm done.
Yeah, so we're done for today. And we'll be back next week. It's election eve in the United States next week. So we're going to talk about polarization and use that as the stimulus for a self-assessment where we look at all 28 skills of the matrix and look at how we confront polarization in our own life. So we look forward to seeing you then. And between now and then, we hope that all of your needs are met reliably and abundantly. Aloha, everybody.